Hello and welcome to #ShareAStory. My name is Dave Hearn and I'm reading a story today to you guys called How 6 Men Got On in the World by Brothers Grimm. I decided to wear a heavy jumper and attempted some kind of mysterious lighting. We'll see how this goes. I'll be sight reading most of it and attempting various accents, so this could be an absolute car crash. I'll do my best. Okay, How 6 Men Got On in the World. It's off to a great start. How 6 Men Got On in the World by the Brothers Grimm. Here we go. There was once a man who understood all kinds of arts. He served in war and behaved well and bravely. But when the war was over, he received his dismissal and 3 farthings for his expenses on the way. "Stop," said he. "I shall not be content with this. If I can only meet with the right people, the king will yet have to give me all the treasure of the country." Then, full of anger, he went into the forest and saw a man standing therein who had plucked up 6 trees as if they were blades of corn. He said to him, "Wilt thou be my servant and go with me?" "Yes," he answered, "but first I will take this little bundle of sticks home to my mother." And he took one of the trees and wrapped it around 5 others, lifted the bundle onto his back, and carried it away. Then he returned and went to his master and said, We two ought to be able to get through the world very well." And when they had walked on for a short while, they found a huntsman. He was kneeling and he shouldered his gun, and he was about to fire. The master said to him, "Huntsman, what art thou going to shoot?" He answered, 2 miles from here is a fly sitting on a branch of an oak tree, and I want to shoot his left eye out." "Oh, come with me," said the man. "If we 3 are together, we certainly ought to be able to get on in the world." The huntsman was ready and went with him. And then they came to 7 windmills, whose sails were turning around with great speed, and yet no wind was blowing on either the right or the left, and no leaf was stirring. Then the man said, "I know not what is driving these windmills. Not a breath of air is stirring." And he went onwards with his servants. And when they walked 2 miles, they saw a man sitting on a tree who was shutting one nostril and blowing out of the other. "Good gracious, what are you doing up there?" And the man answered, 2 miles from here are 7 windmills. Look, I'm blowing them till they turn round." "Oh, come with me," said the man. "If we 4 are together, we shall carry the whole world before us." Then the blower came down and went with him. And after a while they saw another man who was standing on one leg and had taken off the other and had laid it beside him. Then the master said, "You have arranged things very comfortably to have a rest." "I'm a runner," he replied, "and to stop myself running far too fast, I have taken off one of my legs, for if I run with both, I go quicker than any bird can fly." "Oh, well, go with me. If we 5 are together, we shall carry the whole world before us." So he went with them, and it was not long before they met a man who wore a cap, but had put it quite on one ear. Then the master said to him, Gracefully, don't stick your cap on one ear. You look just like a tomfool." And the cap man said, I need another accent. Okay, the cap man said, "I must not wear it otherwise, for if I set my hat straight, a terrible frost comes on, and all the birds in the air are frozen, and drop down dead on the ground." "Oh, come with me," said the master. "If we 6 are together, we shall carry the whole world before us." Now the 6 men came to a town where the king had proclaimed that whoever ran a race with his daughter and won, the victor should be her husband, but whoever lost it must also lose his head. Then the man presented himself and said, "I will, however, let my servant run for me." The king replied, "Is posh, the king's posh. The king, yes. Okay, then the king replied, "Then his life must also be staked, so that his head and thine are both set on the victory." When that was settled and made secure, the man buckled the other leg on the runner and said to him, "Now be nimble and help us win." It was fixed that the one who was first to bring some water from a far distant well was to be the victor. The runner received a pitcher, and the king's daughter won too, and they began to run at the same time. In an instant, when the king's daughter had got very little way, the people who were looking on could see no more of the runner, and it was just as if the wind had whistled by. In a short time he reached the well, filled his pitcher with water, and turned back. Halfway home, however, he was overcome with fatigue, and he set his pitcher down, lay down himself, and he fell asleep. He had, however, made a pillow of a horse's skull, which was lying on the ground, in order that he might lie uncomfortably and soon wake up again. Seems reasonable. In the meantime, the king's daughter, who could also run very well, was, quite as well as any mortal can, had reached the well and was hurrying back with her pitcher full of water when she saw the liar running there asleep, and she was glad, and she said, "My enemy is delivered over into my hands." So she emptied his pitcher and ran on. And now all would have been lost if by good luck the huntsman had not been standing atop the castle and had not seen everything with his sharp eyes. Then he said, "The king's daughter shall not prevail against us." And he loaded his gun and shot so cleverly that he shot the horse's skull away from under the runner's head without hurting him. Then the runner awoke, leapt up, and saw that his pitcher was empty, and that the king's daughter was already far in advance. He did not lose heart, however, because he ran back to the well with his pitcher, drew some water, and was still home again 10 minutes before the king's daughter. "Behold," said he, "I have not bestirred myself till now. It did not deserve to be called running before." But it pained the king, and still more his daughter, that she should be carried off by a common disbanded soldier. So they took counsel with each other, it's nice, and they thought, "How can we get rid of this man and his companions?" Then the king said to her, "I have thought of a way. Don't be afraid. They shall not come back again." And he said to them, "You shall now make merry together, and eat and drink." And he conducted them to a room which had a floor of iron. And the doors were also made of iron, and the windows were guarded with iron bars. Now in the middle of the room there was a table covered with delicious food, and the king said to them, "Go in and enjoy yourselves." And when they were inside, he ordered the doors to be shut and bolted. Then he sent for the cook and commanded him to make a fire under the room until the iron became red hot. The cook did, and the six were sitting at a table and began to feel quite warm. And then they thought the heat was caused by the food, but still it became greater. And then they wanted to get out, and they found that the doors and the windows were bolted. They became aware that the king must have an evil intention and wanted to suffocate them. The man in the cap's about to speak, who was he was northern. "He shall not succeed, however," said the one in the cap. "I will cause a frost to come, but before which the fire shall be ashamed and creep away." Then he put his cap on straight, and immediately there came such a frost that all the heat disappeared, and the food and the dishes all began to freeze. When an hour or two had passed, the king believed that they had perished in the heat, and he had the doors open up to behold them himself. But when the doors were opened, all 6 men were standing there, alive and well, and said that they should very much like to get out and get warm. For the very food was frozen, and the dishes were cold. Then, full of anger, the king went down to the cook, scolded him, and asked why he had not done as he had been ordered to do. But the cook replied, "There is heat enough there, just look yourself." Then the king saw that a fierce fire was burning under the iron room, and perceived that there was no getting the better of the 6 in this way. Again, the king considered how to get rid of these unpleasant guests, and caused their chief to be brought, and said, "If thou wilt take gold and renounce my daughter, thou shalt have as much as thou wilt." "Oh yes, Lord King," he answered. Give me as much as my servant can carry, and I will not ask for your daughter." On this the king was satisfied, and the other continued, "In 14 days I will come and fetch it." Thereupon he summoned together all the tailors in the whole kingdom, and they sat for 14 days to sew a new sack. And when it was ready, the strong one could tear up the trees. The strong one that could tear up the trees had to take it on his back and go with it to the king. Then said the king, "Who can that strong fellow be? He is carrying a bundle of linen on his back that's as big as a house." And he was alarmed and said, "What a lot of gold he can carry away." Then he commanded for a ton of gold to be brought. It took 16 of his strongest men to carry it. But the strong one snatched it up in one hand, put it in his sack, and said, "Why don't you bring more at the same time? That hardly covers the bottom." Then, little by little, the king caused all his treasure to be brought together, and the strong one pushed it into the sack, and still the sack was not even half full. "Bring me more," cried he. "These few crumbs don't fill it." And 7,000 carts of gold had to be gathered together in the whole kingdom, and the strong one just thrust them, and the oxen, and he just put them all in the sack. "I will examine it no longer," said he, "but we'll just take what comes, so long as the sack is a bit full." When all that was inside, there was still room for a great deal more. Then he said, "I will just make an end of the thing. People sometimes do tie up a sack, even when it's not full." So he took it on his back, and he went away with his comrades. When the king saw that one single man was carrying the entire wealth of the country, he became enraged, and bade his horsemen to mount and pursue the 6 men, and ordered them to take the sack away from the strong one. 2 regiments speedily overtook the 6 and called out, "You are prisoners. Put the sack down, or you will all be cut to pieces." It was the blower. This was the blower, wasn't it? He was Scottish. Scottish. Okay. "What say you?" cried the blower. "We are prisoners. Rather than that should happen, all of you shall dance about in the air." And he closed one nostril, and with the other blew on the 2 regiments. Then they were driven away from each other and carried into the blue sky over all of the mountains, one here, the other there. One sergeant cried for mercy. He had 9 wounds and was a brave fellow who did not deserve ill treatment. So the blower stopped a little and let him lower down without injury. And the blower said to him, "Now go home to thy king and tell him he had better send some more horsemen, and I will blow them all into the air." When the king was informed of this, he said, "Let the rascals go, they have the best of it." Then the 6 conveyed the riches home, divided it amongst them, and lived in content until their death. The end. Quite an abrupt ending from the Brothers Grimm. Answers on a postcard about the moral of that story. And now, that's the end. But also, I hope you've enjoyed Take two. I hope you've enjoyed #share a story from Roundabout Dramatherapy. Storytelling and story making are at the heart of how Roundabout ensures everyone's issues and voices can be heard. If you would like to make a donation to support the work of the charity, they would be very grateful for your support. A small gift will make a big difference to the children and adults they support. Thank you for listening to my awful attempt at reading this story. I'm bad, but Roundabout are amazing, so donate.